Welcome back to the Pain Changer podcast. Been a while since I created a new episode, and I am super excited to be back. I have a few more guests lined up, so stay tuned as I roll those out. Have you been wondering about all the hype around Cognomovement as of late, but maybe thinking you just don't quite get it yet? Fear not. Today, I have the honor of speaking to the creators of the Cognomovement System, Bill McKenna and Liz Larson. They have been finding all kinds of innovative solutions for TBIs, concussions, trauma, physical pain, among other things, and they are here to share some of the secrets and how Cognomovement can specifically help the first responder community. So I'd like to introduce my guest today. Bill McKenna is the author of The Only Lesson and the founder of the Cognomovement Systems. During his own life-changing spiritual awakening, Bill studied with a number of master teachers to learn the secrets of self-discovery and the ability to create miraculous change in his life and in the lives of others. I love my dog. Bill now shares those secrets with his students in his renowned Secrets of the Masters series. Liz Larson is the co-creator of the Cognomovement System and author of Suffering is Optional and the Tiny Book of Big Manifesting. In addition, Liz is a trainer, coach, speaker, and designer of the Cognomovement Curriculum. Liz has made it her mission to keep pushing the boundaries of possibility in consciousness, awareness, self-development, and wellness. She is an expert at turning possibilities into technologies that can be used to create fast and lasting change. I can totally, directly, personally vouch for her ability to do that. As a master certified neuro-linguistics programming practitioner, Liz has taken the art of combining strategies that work to a whole new level. She has pioneered modalities that combine esoteric and spiritual studies with the scientific and practical to facilitate significant change in the way the brain, mind, body, and spirit function as a whole. Liz became an avid student of the brain and its ability to change after devastating diagnoses of brain illnesses in both of her parents. Welcome back to the Pain Changer podcast, Liz and Bill. It is always such a pleasure when I get to go deep with you two and learn more tricks that I can share with my clients to help them on their journeys. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Katie.
Thank you so much, Katie. And, first off, I just wanted to say, thank you for that introduction. What we do, I just want to be clear, there was a lot of diagnoses, concussions and traumatic brain injuries. One of the interesting things about the work we do is we don't diagnose or treat any illness, any named illness, either mental or emotional. But what we do is we build a person's mental acuity. We build their athletic performance through their brain and their nervous system. And with that, the most amazing things happen. So these are really exercises, hundreds and hundreds of different exercises that actually build up a person's mental acuity. When you do have something like a trauma, physical or emotional, it will look about the same in the brain. We know this from the Amen Institute. Amen Institute has something like several 100,000 brain scans where they evaluated people's brains and different injuries, different illnesses, and over that period of time and the hundreds of thousands of scans, they saw that a physical injury and an emotional injury, a trauma, actually look the same in the brain. It's amazing. Anyway, the great news is that you can build back. You can build your mental acuity back. You can build yourself back and have a new life.
And thank you for that distinction that we don't actually diagnose or treat any diagnoses. We're actually working with the human being, regardless of what those are, to help facilitate healing and extra, like you mentioned, just building up that cognitive ability in there and building the person that they want to be.
Can I add to that?
Please.
As Bill was talking about that, you said also that it is hard. Some people aren't sure what this thing is or what it does. And it really boils down to one simple truth, that our central nervous system handles literally everything in our body. It sends the signals all the way out beyond our body, back to the brain to tell us what's around us, what's in us, what's happening. Are we in pain? Is there danger? You know, does something smell good? Are we hungry? All of that is handled by this singular system. And lots of things go wrong in an electrical system. I mean, think about the cars we have and the things that go wrong in their electrical systems, right? You have to have a technician that gets in there. Our electrical systems aren't any different from that. They get glitches, they get rewired, they get bumped, and we need to rewire them. We need to change them. We need to shift them. And so what Bill and I have done is created a system that is the technician for that. So a practitioner can do it, or you can do it for yourself, but we do have to learn how to rewire. Those glitches, you know, the knots that happen in our nervous system, those are the things that most people call illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all they are. We've heard some amazing stories about things that shift in life that shouldn't be possible, health things. And they're possible because we're rewiring that electrical system and just letting the signals be as clean and as clear and as resourceful as possible. So for that reason, we can use it for almost anything that we want to talk about.
So I want you to go a little bit further on that. And thank you for expanding on that, Liz. So when you say that there's like a bump or knot in the nervous system, give me an example of what that looks like in someone's life.
Okay, so I will tell you about a friend recently who has this horse of a dog. He is a Doberman Pinscher in name, but literally the size of a horse. And unfortunately, the brain the size of about a chicken. Like, it's really a bad combo. He's the cutest thing, but he will run at you to greet you. My friend is in her 70s, very great shape, but he caught her off guard and plowed her.
Oh, no.
So she fell, hit her shoulder, you know, banged up her leg. Well, it was minor injuries, the bump, but the trauma to the body got the nervous system to start routing around those little injured places. So she ended up with, you know, a little bruise on one shoulder, but the other shoulder, the muscles just started to yank the other direction, just pulling the other direction, trying to route around inflammation and injury. So that normal signal that would go to that part of her body, it got disrupted by inflammation, bruising, you know, blood flow issues, just for that momentary time, the trauma, right? So now the nervous system goes a little haywire, trying to reorganize muscles to straighten that whole thing out on its own. And in the end, what it did is it pulled a rib out, the original injury, right? Yeah. Well, having a rib out made her stand funny. Now her low back is out. So the system just keeps trying to reroute. It keeps trying to correct around itself. Now we've got a whole knot that needed wadded up, right? Or that was wadded up, that needs unwadded up. So my friend suffered like we do. You know, I'm okay. I'm like, I can help you with that. I can help you with that.
Yeah.
I can help you with that. So finally she's like, please help me with this. By now it's 2 weeks in and we've got all these messes. Well, I knew that I could release the nervous system in that area through her neck and through her eyes by just simply accessing the pattern that I knew was unresourceful. You and I did this for your hip, remember?
Oh, yes.
So I'm not a body worker. I didn't readjust her body, but what I did know is that the nervous system signal needed some help. It needed better feedback to autocorrect itself. And that's what we did. She was in a state where, I don't know if you've ever had a rib out. You know, if you lift your arm or breathe, you go, what? And every time she moved her arm, she would scream, right? Yeah. She couldn't move it beyond, you know, just lifting her shoulder the tiniest bit. By the time she left, I got the arm all the way up, rotating all the way around. Now, for a few minutes, that was not comfortable to adjust. Right. But it adjusted and released. And then it gave her body the freedom to readjust everything else around the new freed up energy in that shoulder. So that's kind of how it works. And when you have any of those bumps or bruises, and that even could be a big fight. It could be witnessing a trauma, like some of the first responders that you work with. Those also can get our nervous systems kind of wadded up, and they will need some help to autocorrect.
Absolutely. So without telling us how, because people can reach out to you guys to experience the how firsthand, but what exactly were you doing there? Since you're not a body worker, what
Yeah.
was actually at the core of the work that helped your friend release her shoulder and get that relief?
Acknowledging the part of the body that's actually receiving the signal. So there was a muscle in her back that was really spasming. You know, everybody's had this where you can feel it pulsating so tight. So we provided that part of the body with some what we call stimulation, just a little sensation there to give the body feedback, because the body will continue to send an errant signal to a place it believes is injured again and again. Pain, 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 pain. We're in trouble, we're in trouble. And yet at that point, you're not, you're supposed to be healing. So something that doesn't heal needs that feedback. So we provided feedback through stimulation. And then I moved her eyes on the other end to a place that correlated with that. And in this case, it was a place that made it worse. And then we relieved the pressure on that end of the nervous system. We released the pressure in the eyes. So when we work both ends of a pattern, the system's like, oh, hey, that is not working at all. We didn't see it before. We do now. And it releases the pattern instantly. Instantly was released.
And I have experienced what Liz is talking about directly. She worked with me a couple weeks ago when my PT realized that I was limping as I run, which now my gait is almost perfectly even. Only when I start to get fatigued do I start to go in again. And much like you said, my brain had that pattern running for, I don't know how many years now, 8 to 12, something like that, of pain on one side of my back or the other. And so even though the pain is no longer there, much to your point, that signal is still there. And so my body's still like, oh, there's something wrong. We need to be away from this. And doing a couple. So I worked with him again yesterday and I brought in my ball. So people haven't seen the Cognomovement ball, and you can see one behind Bill over there too. But I brought in my ball and I did the same adjustments that you were talking about. And we kept measuring, and he was just like, he'd never seen it before. And I'm like, I'm going to be putting myself in some weird positions as I'm doing this. I'm just letting the brain see the pattern. So I'm trying to explain what's going on. He was like, this is interesting. But he could see the improvement every time he put me back on the treadmill. And every time that then we took it outside and we started to run on a surface that my body's more used to running to. And we measured and could see like what impacted it positively, what impacted it negatively. And we kept going back to that pattern to keep tightening it up. And the reason there's so much repetition in my case, where you're not talking about that with your friend, is I held that pattern for somewhere around a decade or more. So that isn't going to be a one-time fix. Typically, there's a little bit of layering, if I'm saying that correctly. And so I'm still, but considering that we've gone from disability 6 years ago and awaiting a neurosurgery consult before I met you two to doing a half marathon, I'm okay with a few little tweaks here and there. That's nothing. So
yeah, sometimes the system can only readjust so far, and then the body has to integrate it.
Yeah.
And then it needs readjusted the next level, and then the body integrates that. And again, Bill has been working with some people with very sensitive systems where that's the case. The system will only take small adjustments, but when the new adjustment is integrated, you're at a new level. You get to keep that. And then the next adjustment has to be made. Some people's systems will let you adjust all at once. So,
right. Yeah. And it depends again. And I like that you brought up the sensitivity of the system. And I want to dive into that a little bit deeper. Bill, you had also mentioned something that was really intriguing. And before we started to dive into some of the body mechanics and looking at the pattern at both ends of it to let the brain see it as it truly is. So you mentioned that an emotional and physical trauma look very similar on brain scans, and that regardless of whether it's been physical or emotional, we can rebuild. So what does that mean to you as the creator of Cognomovement, that the brain scan looks the same, whether it's been a physical trauma or an emotional one?
So the on the SPECT scans that Dr. Daniel Amen has been doing at his clinics, you'll see the blood won't be flowing in certain areas. And there are certain patterns of overactivity or underactivity. So those are easily identifiable. Interestingly enough, wherever these situations are of over or underactivity, you can actually predict what's going to be going on in a person's life. They've got communication problems. They're OCD. OCD looks like Swiss cheese. When you look at the brain scans, it looks like there's just a bunch of Swiss cheese holes in your brain.
Wow.
So amazing information that they've been able to garner. He said, the psychiatrists were the only doctors that didn't look at the organ that they treat. And he's the first person that ended up doing these actual scans. He was a radiologist and a psychiatrist. So he was the first person to integrate the two. And he took a lot of flack for it. But he has advanced mental health substantially, because so many of the mental health issues are really nothing more than a correctable brain injury. So to answer your question directly, I'll take, for example, one of the practitioners in Florida. Yesterday, we had a meeting, and she was discussing, what are some of the people that you've worked on? And one of the people that she worked on was 70 years old, I believe, and had lost his wife and had basically been crying all day, every day, literally all day, every day, just wanted to die, and ended up getting, of all things, 2 pear-shaped tumors in his lungs, one in each lung, and overwhelmed with grief. Now, it's been said that grief, different emotions, play out in different parts of the body. And they say, the lungs are about grief. Well, interestingly enough, he ends up getting these tumors in his lungs. Now, he was crying so much, and was a personal friend of Kristen. He said, can I just help you so that you're not crying all day? And she worked with him on his grief and just allowed him to feel his grief and did the exercises. He did the exercises, and after the very first session, he said, well, instead of crying all day, I'm just down to 3 times a day. And then she said, hey, man, that's great. That's great. You want a little bit more help? Did another session, and he was down to just crying once a day. Anyway, he's signed up, for the doctor to go do surgery, or on this situation with the tumors, and he goes in to get his before, again, updated scans, and the tumors were gone.
Wow.
Now, we don't treat cancer. We didn't, we didn't do that. But what we did do was we processed his grief. We allowed him to feel his grief and to let his nervous system process that. And so what Liz was saying earlier, the system, when you process the emotion, your system starts going back into homeostasis. Stress. stress, especially in a lot of the people you serve, stress is the order of the day. You know, that is just how it is, you know. And if you went out and you said, hey, you know what? Hey, scientists, I would like 1 bottle of stress. Will you please provide me 1 bottle of stress? It's not. I mean, there's things that cause stress, but there is no chemical stress.
No.
It is things cause it. But yet, stress, heart attack, stress, stroke, stress, many, many things.
Mhm.
So as a person can process their stress, they go from super vigilant to super performance. They're able to be a better father, a better mother, you know, to be more here and now and to be happier.
Wow. Yeah. And I've seen that a lot. And I love that distinction that you brought out. Like, no one's going to go actually ask for stress. But sometimes we get into these patterns where we're actually unknowingly bringing more into our life because we don't see that yet. We don't realize that we're bringing that stress in there. So when we look specifically at the first responder, and I want to narrow in more on the law enforcement piece, since that's who I've worked with the most to date. So some of the things that make them more complex to work with, and they're also my favorite popular part of the population to work with, because my nervous system used to be very similar to how a lot of theirs are. So it makes it super easy to relate. And for those that don't know my story, just super quick nutshell, unanswered trauma for 40 years before I started dealing with it. Wreaked a little bit of havoc in the body before I started to deal with it. Met Liz and Bill and started to get all this out of my system to be fully functioning like I am today. There are some complexities, though, within the law enforcement field that we don't see anywhere else. So first of all, they're seeing exponentially more traumas than we are. But then there's another couple of places where they are expected to go back to work, depending on the chief, immediately or within minutes or hours or a day of seeing something horrific, like witnessing a suicide or having to respond to a child death or something else that is equally as disruptive to the psyche. And I remember hearing one cop, Ernie Stevens in particular, he has an amazing documentary on HBO called Ernie and Joe Crisis Cops. And he spoke at a wellness conference, we said, and he can still hear the fingernails on the cement before the guy jumped. Those are the kind of things that stick with them. And Ernie and Joe, having the knowledge for mental health that they did, gave themselves a debrief, helped themselves before they went back to work. But a lot of people don't have that wherewithal. They don't have that knowledge. And part of that is because there is this stigma in the law enforcement community. And there is a real fear. And there's this fear has happened to many people where if they say, I'm not okay, they can get put on administrative leave. They may have their weapon taken away from them, which is not going to help anything because now they feel like there's something wrong with them. They don't feel like they're having a normal human response, and they don't feel that they have the support from their administration in there. So when we speak about Cognomovement, some of the powers in there, and Liz, I'll have you start with this, and then Bill, I would love if you would add, but where are some of the places in there that Cognomovement can help, and what are some of the benefits within Cognomovement? I know some of these, but I want you guys to answer for the sake of the audience. But what are some of the special things within Cognomovement that we can do that other modalities can't, that would allow for a safer place for officers to start to get the healing they need and not be at risk of being put on administrative leave?
I would say the first thing is that for us, it's not about mental health. It's about the health of the entire body. And I think this has been the massive mistake in psychology in the first place, is that, and I think it's the reason that there's a stigma with first responders, is that I have a mental health problem. My mind isn't right. And that's why I can't go back to work right away, or that's why I'm having a problem with this. Where I think that's a complete misnomer.
Mm-hmm.
The system is going a little bit haywire, like we talked about before. It is the part of our system that is intended to keep us safe and alive that pulls the fire alarms and says, Houston, we have a problem. We need to stop what we're doing right now and either run, hide, fight, get bigger than, get smaller than, do something to alleviate this problem.
Mm-hmm.
So a first responder who's not given any time to address that, work it out of their body, they go back to work as though nothing has happened, and the system is still doing the thing. It just gets pushed down and we pretend like it's not. And then the next one comes in and that one gets pushed down. We pretend like our system's fine. The whole time, the system is creating these injuries to itself. Some part of the body's going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's our blood pressure. Maybe it's our muscles. This time, if we're lucky, it's just muscles and sore back. Maybe it's something that starts a cancer pattern in the body. It's not going to go away on its own. So with Cognomovement, we do exactly what we said. We address the whole system. Where is the body actually experiencing pain or discomfort? Maybe for that officer, it's in a bad shoulder. My shoulder just hurts right now, right? And my mind is a little concerned about what's happening. So we address both sides of that issue to collapse the pattern before it has time to turn into something much bigger.
Nice. I like that. And I just want to highlight this, and Bill or Liz, I'll let whoever want to take this, but one of the things that has appealed with some of the officers I've worked with is that they don't actually have to tell me what's happening or even know what exactly may be keeping them up at night or creating this anxiety or making their shoulder hurt. So what is it about Cognomovement that allows the person to not have to verbalize? What are we doing in there that makes that possible, that someone can actually keep whatever privacy they want to keep? And they aren't, because some of the resistance we see with talk therapy is you're going into a stranger, you're dumping out your life story. In law enforcement, if it's someone who isn't very informed about the culture, you could actually wind up traumatizing that therapist with what they're hearing. And that builds into some of that resistance and that stigma. But Cognomovement is very differently. So what are we doing in there, Bill, that allows an officer to come into me and I can know nothing other than where they may be feeling the physical sensation in the body, but yet I can still help them get to sleep. I can help them feel better. I can help them have a better relationship with their spouse. And I have no idea what they were working on.
That's a really good question and a great point. There's really three different groups that I feel that this works well with. So the first is first responders and those in the intelligence community. They can't talk. They can't say squat. Worked with people that are in secure facilities, and I know they can't say anything. That's fine. First responders, as you said, some of them are so aware of how horrific it is, they don't really want to harm the therapist. That's what things, so caring. They're thinking about somebody else. And also juveniles. If you're a teenager, they can't even, what am I feeling? I don't know. I don't feel anything. They cannot even discern.
Right.
That is and there's people who basically just for whatever reason, there's a secret in there and they can't talk about it. Now, what we do is simply tell the person, I want you to feel how you feel. Just feel how you feel. Notice it in your body, and we locate the problem. So how do we do that? It turns out that your eyeballs are, according to Dr. Andrew Huberman of Stanford, he's a neurologist, ophthalmologist or neurologist, I believe. He basically, the brain and eyes and spinal cord, is the nervous system. The eyes are the only visible part of the brain, according to him, because the eyes and brain are one system. The spinal is also one with the brain. So what we do is we find the area of disturbance through the eyes. We can actually locate where the problem is. What do I mean by that? Everywhere that you look is a different part of your brain. From a very practical standpoint, you can kind of litmus test this for yourself. When you see people are going to cry, what do? They look down. They look down. And if they're sad, they're looking down.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see teenagers, in their dark moods, like, yay, looking up. They're looking downwards. Downwards connects to that part of the brain that's emotions, specifically negative emotions. And if you see somebody who just won the gold medal, what do? The champion, they're looking up. Yeah, right? Or they're in like some divine connected state. You see, go into any temple anywhere, any church anywhere, and the people are like looking up. So this is the other part of your brain that inspiration, the higher functions of the brain, this prefrontal cortex area. So what we have mastered is the ability to I love the way Liz Larson puts it, be a neurological detective. There are little details, very minute and sometimes not so minute details where you're able to see the disturbance in their eyes, and it will be in different positions. It will even be in their peripheral vision. So with this, knowing this information, there are these, like we talked about earlier, different ways that we can start to resolve it. As we resolve it, you can actually see the resolution within their vision. And because the eyes and the brain are one, well, what do you think's going on inside the brain? That's why this is all building back mental acuity. When there's a part of the brain that has a trauma, physical or emotional, and you find it within the person's visual reference, they're going to have everything from literal blind, like I cannot see in this, I have a literal blind spot, or my eyes will start blinking there, I can't look there, it's strained. There's many things. One eye will work, the other line doesn't. It goes, or one will go up and the other one will go over to the side. Many different things. But this is only one aspect. We utilize a person's entire body, even their ears. One of the ways that we can locate the problem is literally through their ears. The ancient practice of acupuncture has taught us that the ears represent your entire body. And specifically, the outer lip of the ear will actually be the spinal cord. So when there was a particular issue for the person, there'll be a sensitive spot in their ear, which really, for us, double verifies I'm feeling it in my heart, and you'll see there's a sensitive part in a very specific part of their ear. When this heavy feeling goes away in their heart, and we've done our work, we'll literally see that go away. It's like, oh, what the heck? It doesn't hurt anymore. Anyway, we don't have enough hours to go over it all. But my point is just to kind of shine a light that there are these really interesting ways that your body expresses, that we can see it and utilize your nervous system to start resolving it.
I love that. And you said a couple things in there, and it was bringing me back to what Liz had said before. So just kind of summarize what we're talking about here. So when we're working with people, we aren't worried about their mental health, nor are we looking at, there's nothing wrong. It is that their body, their nervous system is having a normal response to extreme circumstances, and they have not had the opportunity to unwind the system to get it functioning again properly. Correct?
Absolutely. That's correct. And there's a reason for that. And it's so darn basic that nobody even knows it. If you look and you're a keen observer, you'll see the person tell the story, and their eyes are going to go to certain positions.
Mm-hmm.
And they go repeatedly to that exact position. Remember what I just said is there's a place that the eyes have a disturbance.
Mm-hmm.
If you put your eyes accidentally into this disturbance area, it is nowhere that you want to be.
Right.
You literally will find yourself there, bam, it's like, I compare it to going to a diner and somebody spilt the maple syrup on the counter, and it's kind of sticky, and you put your hand on it. It's like, you just don't go back there. Don't put your hand over there because that don't feel good. Well, it's the same thing with your eyes. You're just not going over there. The problem and the solution are in the same place. So the person will never have the opportunity. They'll have the program running in the same part of the brain. And these poor first responders never have the opportunity to resolve it. They will live with this. They will drink it away. They will distract it away. They'll suppress it away, but it's still running. And that turns into so many problems. I got to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about LAPD. So LAPD, I had a client who was down in the dispatch room. So at LAPD, it was underground. And it's a room, it is a room full of a dispatch. Now they have a loudspeaker, and the loudspeaker, when a 911 call comes through, all the operators are there. Plus they have the speaker, and chat, and so, they've got, LAPD's got their own heliport. I don't know, God knows how many helicopters up there. You can see it off the free. I mean, it's a beautiful helipad. I mean, it's huge. And they got, obviously it's a massive operation.
Oh yeah.
So here's all these dispatchers in the room, and the stuff's coming over, and the adrenaline's running. It's like, and the chase is on, they got this air unit, that air unit, all the police cars are going around. Well, they can hear all the chatter and shots fired, and they're literally in it. I mean, the excitement down in that room, but it's all the hardship of life.
Yeah.
People being shot, officers being shot, murders, every possible bad thing. Guess where it ends up? That room. She said that they are all getting cancer. So much cancer, and it was every type of cancer. There was throat cancer, pancreatic, this cancer, that cancer. They ended up doing a study. They were like, there's something in the ducts. Everybody down here is getting cancer. We got, what? This is a big problem. So they're in there, swabbing the ducts and, like all kinds of expense to try to figure it out. It was all of the trauma. and they're all in there 7 days a week,
Yep.
going at it. And nobody's processing anything. Can you imagine what they would see on a weekly basis?
No,
It's unbelievable.
it
But
is.
anyway, I've never worked. I didn't get to work with the department, but they certainly could use the help, because these people, their nervous system, you could imagine. I can imagine myself if I was in that room and then the call came in about bank robbers or something, and then, dispatch this unit and that unit, and then all these, everything's happening. It'd be like my hands would be sweating. My nervous system would be like, oh,
Yeah.
and if there was a bad outcome, at least from, the cop's perspective, a bad outcome, and I didn't have a way to really resolve all of that nervous system issue and process what happened.
Mhm.
Of course, everybody's going to get cancer after years of subjecting their nervous system to this.
And I love that you brought up dispatchers, because they do have the same higher level of post-traumatic stress that we see in officers. And so they have been included in this because their nervous systems are going through it. And something that happens to dispatchers that officers don't go through, they don't always know what happened. So they are hearing people with raw human emotion, which you have ever heard someone deep in the throes of shock and grief. It hits your bloodstream. I can almost feel my body getting full chills right now, because I've heard humans in agony before, when I've been next to someone when they found out that their person has died. Like, you are in the throes of grief. You are hearing people with raw human emotion, and then you don't know how it ends. But then you're expected to go home at the end of your workday, connect with your spouse, connect with your kids, and act normal when your nervous system has just gone through the ringer. And it's exceptionally difficult to do that. So, Bill, you had said in there, when someone's telling the stories, the eyes are going to go to a certain place. So that's exactly why, or one of the reasons why, if you're working with someone in intelligence who has a high level of clearance and they can't tell you what's going on, or maybe they don't feel comfortable to, their eyes are still going to get that clue, because it's still in that spot in the nervous system, whether they're vocalizing it or not, right?
Exactly. And you can help them very, very quickly and easily as you go through these basic exercises. The cool thing is once somebody's been through a session, they begin to really know it. They start to know their body. Oh, I didn't know my body did this. And they'll actually be able to tell where that spot is for them. And it's something to witness, to witness someone going from an impossible situation to resolve, like there is no way out from this grief, from this guilt, from this shame, to, you know what, that happened and I'm okay. And I really don't feel anything about it anymore. I'm all right now. I'm all right.
I love that. So we've talked about the eyes a lot, and the eyes are part of the nervous system, the eyes, brain, spinal column. Does that mean we can rely on the information that our eyes are seeing? Liz, can you take that one?
No, I'm not. We really can't. So we actually see the world through our most predominant emotional state. That colors everything we see. And we can't see anything else but the world through our current emotional state. So, for example, we're talking about first responders. If they are in constant fight or flight, they may not know they're in fear, because they're in hypervigilance. That is what they call it, constantly on high alert. That's how they see the whole world. That's what their eyes physically see. So when they go home, we're looking for hypervigilance. We're looking for a problem. We're looking to put out a fire. We're looking to save a life. Only what's there is your 3-year-old playing on the floor, who needs you to see a baby that needs hugs and loves and kisses, right?
Right.
So this is the importance of turning off these patterns in these in our caregivers, in our they really are caregivers, they're really superheroes, but in our first responders, right? So there's another piece of this. When trauma happens to the physical body, an injury, a brain injury, seeing something horrific, we've already said that that causes a little glitch in the matrix, right?
Right.
It also creates a glitch in what our physical eyes can see, not just the lens we're seeing through, but what's available. So we do a process of reconnecting the brain, and in that process, we'll see what the non-focused vision, some people might refer to it as peripheral, where it's not exactly that, but non-focused vision, and the vision can actually spot.
Mm-hmm.
What we find is that in almost every person who's had one of these kinds of injuries, there are big holes in their vision. They see color incorrectly. They don't see color at all. There are gaps as though there isn't anything in that part of their vision. And a lot of times these are big gaps, big holes, and big errors in what's being seen.
Mm-hmm.
What most people don't realize is the brain makes a lot of things up. It will just assume what's around you. You know, you walk through your house and you think you know what's there. Things can be at a place that you don't even notice for months,
Mm-hmm.
because your brain is filling in what's around you. Now, if your brain is actually, brain and eyes are working together, working well, and you can physically see everything, that's one thing. Your brain's still making stuff up. But imagine a brain, what it's making up where there's holes in the vision. Imagine the things that you're not seeing. This is where people run into things. You're
Mm-hmm.
constantly curbing the tires on your car, running into doors, falling, you know, having accidents, and also just not being fully present or aware of your surroundings. This creates a serious lack of hyperperformance. Combine it with hypervigilance, where a brain and body are now constantly ready for any kind of a fight,
Mm-hmm.
not really seeing what's truly around us, but seeing holes, letting the brain make shit up, fill it in, right?
Yeah.
You've got a major problem.
Yeah.
Cognomovement simply reorganizes all of that. It reconnects proprioception, where am I in space? It reconnects your depth perception. When your eyes aren't seeing well, you don't have good depth perception. It reconnects you with the present moment and the present time. See, the nervous system is a really great time traveler. It's constantly focused on what it experienced in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and it tries to project it into your future.
Oh, yes.
Not good, not good at all.
Usually in the form of anxiety.
In the form, of course, we have anxiety because our bodies are constantly trying to say, hey, Katie, remember that 5 crappy things that happened to you in your past? Let's prepare for those to happen in your future. Ready, set, go. Right? Yeah. And then everything's coming at you at once. So these are why one of the reasons the nervous system goes into full glitch, full meltdown. One of the big reasons that we end up with illness and injury. And one of the big reasons that in our first responders, they have so much trouble with relationship. How do you be present when you're busy in your nervous system dealing with the last 1,000 traumas that you've seen, knowing you're going to see 1,000 more, and you haven't had any way to reset the system? If we treat our first responders way more like our best athletes, they come off the field and their bodies are instantly iced down. They're treated, they're massaged, they're, wrapped with things. Like, their bodies are treated like, as important as they are, $1 million machines.
Right.
Our first responders need this too.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to have a way to reset their nervous system immediately after a trauma, and then have a way to have a deeper dive to start changing those things from the past that keep trying to get that first responder's attention, to stop the nervous system from time traveling and projecting, and let them be truly, truly in a state of hyperperformance as humans. We rely on them as our superheroes. But we have to remember that they still have a human nervous system that still works like everybody else's. Maintenance, a little bit of maintenance and repair, just like those electric cars, would go so far in helping them be a healthier, happier community, which is really, I think, very, very important.
Absolutely. And I love that you made the athlete and first responder connection, because we train our physical bodies, and a lot of first responders are in amazing shape, because working out is one of the great ways we can start to reduce stress. But when you're working out to punish yourself, and what I'm hearing and everything you hear here is that for any first responder hearing this, who's struggling to connect to other people, who's struggling with what you're dealing with, you are having a normal human response. It is
Yes.
normal and expected that you are having a hard time connecting with other people. It is normal that you're having a hard time sitting down on the floor and playing with your toddler. It is normal that you feel like your head is all screwed up. It's not. You just have patterns that are working against you in different ways. We don't talk much about training our nervous system. We just talk about training our bodies. And so that's one of the things I'm starting to talk about. You can actually train your nervous system, and Cognomovement is amazing at this. There was a retired first responder I worked with, and I had put up a video one day after I had an emergency with my cat. I have a cat named Squishy who ate her medication, and anyway, woke up, the cat's high as a kite, and like, uh-oh. But normally my pre-Cognomovement response would have been to completely freak out and go. And it wasn't until like I noticed that she started to pant and have respiratory issues that I'm like, I should probably skedaddle out the door, but I still didn't panic. And that was a result of Cognomovement. And I was sharing this on social media, and she was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm used to be like freaked out about everything. She's like, I don't react the same way I used to. I was like, yeah, because you don't have to. Your nervous system isn't saying that everything you see is a danger anymore. It's actually realizing that there's levels here. And now you're able to see that because your nervous system isn't telling you danger, Will Robinson, everywhere you look. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think it's this simple. It's educating and re-educating your nervous system. Like you said, you can call it training. That's a good way to put it. But when like you're training for a marathon, your body needed half marathon. Your body, it's still all the same to me. Big. It's a big deal.
It's a lot.
But your body needed a little re-education. It needed some fine tuning. It needed some adjustments. That has happened for you at the nervous system level, plus the muscular level, plus the cardiovascular level. Your brain has gotten involved in keeping you motivated and all of that. It's a big piece that's missing in most, not just healthcare, education. If you know how to educate your nervous system, you can learn better. If you know how to educate your nervous system, you have way better relationships. If you know how to educate your nervous system, you have better mental acuity, better ideas, you can invent stuff. If you know how to make those adjustments, life just gets a whole lot better. And until Cognomovement, we just didn't have a way to do it that was simple and easy and effective. So Bill and I created this work that is really crazy simple. There's so many ways to do it, and that part feels complicated, but you play, you move, you engage the nervous system in a way that just helps it be its best self. And I think that's the most important thing. We can all be our best selves when we have this extra piece to train and to change and to grow.
Yes. Yeah. And you have this great quote, Liz, that I think about a lot. And Bill, I'd love to hear what you think of this, but it was, you want to change the world, change yourself. So Bill, what do you think about that statement that I've heard? I'm sure you've heard Liz mention that probably more times than I have. It's one of my favorite quotes from you, Liz. And I think about that whenever I'm like, I don't like this. I'm like, wait, change me, and this isn't going to bother me. So Bill, what do you think of that?
I think it's brilliant. And why I say it's brilliant is that the very first thing is it's empowering.
Yeah.
What we don't realize is that everything is a reflection of what's going on inside of us. And we will perceive the world in the way that we feel. You know, because this is going to first responders, they are on the cutting edge. They see life. You know, they see things at their worst. And people, when they're in fear, they will perceive appropriately things to be afraid of and act appropriately. Well, to that fear. But when we have processed out those fears, we end up with discernment.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the truth. I can see the truth of this situation. I can see more. Now, this not only goes for emotions, but it's actually a very much a physical thing. Your perception opens up physically as well. Taking this one step further, I call it a moral responsibility. And the reason that I say that is because if you've ever had a boss or a parent, or, you know, for the first responders, they're seeing other bosses and parents and other people. And shouldn't they be responsible to find their happiness? Really be happy. If they were truly happy, that person, would they be doing these things? Would you be hurting another if you were truly in your core happy? If you've ever run into an authentically happy person, they're not going to hurt you.
No.
They're just not interested in that.
No.
They're in their happiness. It's our moral responsibility because we impact others.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we impact others, and people can feel it. You know, we all feel each other, you know, and your first responders are actually a bunch of sensitives. They have to be. They're very sensitive. Well, it goes both ways. If they start feeling good and finding their happiness, performance increases, and your interactions with others are going to be very, very different. People don't treat us how they should. They treat us how we're feeling, especially about ourselves. Notice when you're in your job, if you're really feeling good, notice what starts coming at you. Experiment with it. It's something that you can litmus test in your life. Now, you know, easier said than done, Bill. You know, you don't realize what I'm facing on a daily basis. Well, step by step, there is a way to process all of these negative emotions. And with the processing of all of them, happiness will naturally emerge. Contentment, satisfaction, performance will all naturally emerge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me add to that really quick, Katie, because obviously I didn't come up with that statement, but I think the reason you love it is you know the culture in which it's being said, right? What we've seen again and again with Cognomovement is that when you change yourself, you change the predominant energy in which you see the world through. Mm-hmm. Every human around you looks completely different. So in relationships, we hear these stories again and again, and as practitioners, we see them happen. A person will come in and change a major emotion in their body, like hatred or real anger, and then go home and they're like, hey, my spouse is completely different. They're acting nice to me. They're doing all the nice things I like. What kind of voodoo is this? Well, it isn't. You literally change the world when you change yourself. We have a practitioner who has a child who has Angelman syndrome, and it is a kind of delayed development situation. And she has done the craziest things to change what's going on with her child. At one point, the child was having a lot of seizures. It's part of the brain issue that the child has. So she worked seizures through her own body. how she felt about it, how terrified she was, what it looked like, how she saw it through her own eyes. She worked the whole thing through her system, and the seizures stopped. Now explain that one.
Right.
We can. And it is that we're so crazy connected with each other. We have so much influence on ourselves and the world around us. If we only knew that when you really change yourself, you literally change what the world looks like. You change how it treats you. You change what comes in. You change the whole experience. I think this is the mission that Bill and I share, and that we hope all of our practitioners share with us. If every human knew this secret, we could shift the world into 5D in about 2.5 seconds. We could do it. And we are doing it. And I say every person who's willing to do this work changes about 1,000 other people, because we really interact with about that many people all the time, you know, at the grocery store, or just the general people that we know. When we interact with them different, when we see them more for who they really are and see ourselves for who we really are, it absolutely changes the planet.
Yep. It does. It changes everything in it. You know, we've had so many conversations about, you know, the Katie you first met in 2020 and the Katie I am today. And I can't even
Yeah.
track everything that's changed anymore. But it's just been focusing on just shifting these patterns and getting rid of these patterns. The 40 years of leaving a trauma sitting in my body, there was a hell of a lot of patterns that came into that. The decade-ish, whatever it was, in high amounts of pain, more patterns were coming in there. And one of the things that also happens when someone's been traumatized a lot, and we see this in first responders as well, is you will actually start looking for more trauma, not consciously, because that's what we do. What we look for, we'll find. It's the RAS system in the brain. Is it the reticular activation system? Am I saying that right? But it's the one that so like a great example of how this works is you suddenly decide that you want to get a certain car, certain color, rims, all that. Suddenly you see that car everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that suddenly everybody had the same great idea you did. It's that your brain has decided that that car is more important. So now it's going to be pointing out to you where you see it, whereas it wasn't important before. And it's the same thing that goes when you're looking for bad guys all the time. Guess what? You're going to find more bad guys. When you're looking for trouble more, you're going to find more trouble. When you're looking for good people, you're going to find more good people. And it works with whatever you look for, you will find. So you can start to reprogram or train or rewire the nervous system to have the results that you desire.
Yeah. If you think about it this way, in this day and age, we all know what VR goggles are. We all know.
Yeah.
And if you've ever put them on, wherever you turn your head and look, the world changes within those VR goggles. This body that we have, that nervous system, those are your VR goggles. And you get to change the way the world looks inside your video game whenever you change your internal mechanisms, whenever you change that nervous system. We have a class coming up that starts this weekend. It's April 20th. So if you're listening sometime later, it's something you could still get in on.
Yeah.
But the first one starts at shame. And, you know, you've had this experience many times. You've attended these events.
Yeah.
If you're seeing the world through shame versus if you're seeing the world through even reason, even or love, think about how different the world inside those VR goggles would look.
Mm-hmm.
A world seen through shame probably looks like all the terrible things you see on the planet, all the homelessness, all the fighting, all the yuck, right? I'm sure everybody can even feel it. Just the word has such a dense energy.
Yeah.
But if you think about neutrality or willingness or acceptance or reason or love, what your VR goggles look through for that, I mean, everything brightens up. You know, everything changes. It's a different world. So each human has that built-in ability that if they can change the lens through which their nervous system sees the world, they can actually change what the world is.
Nice. I love that. And Bill, I meant to go back to this earlier, but when you were saying like people look down when they're depressed, you know, and I've heard that something Tony Robbins does of these things is he'll have people be like, I'm depressed. And it's like, that doesn't work. Or I'm happy, you know, and I was thinking, because my first instinct, even after doing all this work, whenever I feel tears coming, Like if I don't want to cry, I'm going to look up the exact, because I don't want to be in it. I don't want to like, and then we see this when people are at weddings or events, when we got our makeup on, we instinctively look up to keep ourselves from crying because that's where the good stuff is. It's not down here, even though we may be having happy tears. We don't want to mess up our beautiful faces and make sure that we still look wonderful for our friend or family's amazing day. And so it's a whole lot of looking up this way. So my first thought was like, oh, they look up when I'm like, no, they look up when they don't want to cry. When and yeah, when I'm crying, I'm not going like this looking up. I'm in it, much to Bill's point. And I'm sure everybody else is too, because that's just the way our nervous systems work. These are the places where these emotions are available to us.
That's a great trick, weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
Look up.
Yeah, I don't even wear mascara to funerals anymore. I need to feel it. So I just don't even bother. I know it's going to be a gut-wrenching event, so I've become prepared now. But weddings I want to enjoy and still look lovely as I'm doing it. Are there any last thoughts? And actually, I would love if you would talk about the class. I'm going to do my best to get this out the door so people can join on April 20th if they have the availability, and I hope you do. Liz and Bill are amazing to work with. So are there any final thoughts that either of you want to share? Liz, I'll start with you.
Well, I'll just tell about the class really quickly. It's 5 months of one 90-minute to 2-hour session a month. And we're going to hit the heavy emotions. We're going to hit shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, and neutrality. I know that's more than 5. Some of them are combined. But we're going to actually help the system reset around those heavy energies. We've kind of made a commitment for this year because, as everyone knows, it is nuts out there. It's nuts. There's so many things going on that you could probably talk for an hour just saying the list of insane things that are happening on the planet. But there are those of us who do not want that to be our reality, who aren't buying into it, who are not playing the game. For those of us who want to do that, this is for you. We're clearing out those levels so we're not attaching to them as we experience them, as we encounter them, right? We're not attaching. We're clear of it. We're free of it. So it's 5 months, and we're pre-gaming for the big event that happens every year, which is Cogno-Conscious, where we breeze through neutrality into willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and even enlightenment. So this first 5 months is a way to prepare for that if you're coming, or just to dig in and clear out these lower levels so that you're working from a much higher level. So your VR goggles are turned up to the brightest setting that's possible for you. So it's actually sounds terrible, talking about shame or guilt, but it's fun. We're working in the nervous system, making readjustments. It's not a psychological game, it's a physiological game. So it's actually kind of fun. So this series is called Elevate and Illuminate, 5 months. You can take one or all of the modules, and it does start April 20th. However, if you miss it, they're recorded. You can come back and get that one done and join us live for the next months after that.
Awesome. Thank you. So it's one class a month for 5 months, and then Cogno-Conscious is in September. Is that correct?
Yep. Cogno-Conscious is in September. And it's one class a month, and then, we'll be supporting throughout the month. What we hope is that a person will take the class, and then if it's not all pulled out in that first 90 minutes, that you continue on throughout the month. So it's really complete by the end of that month. And then you can tackle the next one.
Yeah, that will be awesome. I just want to make a note before you jump in here, Bill, that these energetic levels that Liz is talking about, this is how I got to cancel my neurosurgery consult and never have neurosurgery, was going through these levels in Cogno-Conscious that Liz was just talking about. That is how powerful emotions can be. So I just wanted to make a point of that. Bill, what would you like to add as we wrap up?
Well, it's everything she said. Yeah, what she said. This is it's an exciting way to process what's been hidden You have no idea that you might think you're afraid, but you have no idea that actually it was shame. There was some shame that was rooted. We find that when we go through these levels, that by the time we get to fear, which is much greater, much higher on the scale than shame, by the time we get there, there's no more fear because it was rooted in something else more elementary than that. So this process, as Liz was saying, is very complete, and it's transformative. In a word, transformative. But we very much appreciate you and the work you do, Katie, and the service you're providing. And it's such an honor to work with you.
And likewise, I am huge fans and eternal gratitude to both of you for starting Cognomovement, and to you, Bill, for suggesting that I go to Cogno Conscious when I had only done one session with you at that point in time. And then I quickly did the basic training bundle to get myself up to speed to do it. And I haven't looked back, as we all know. I embraced it personally and professionally, and it is my go-to when something is bothering me. And I sleep soundly, I don't have pain, using it to help myself on the half marathon. Everything looks different. And yeah, it starts with these energetic levels. So I highly encourage you to, I will make sure that we link to these classes in the show notes as well. And I really encourage you to check it out, try at least the first class, give it a shot, see what it's like, and then just take it from there and decide. Yeah, I doubt you're going to be sorry. It's pretty amazing. There can be moments where it's pretty tough, but that's with anything that you're doing. That growth can have a tough component, but then you're out of it in like a minute or two with Cognomovement. You don't have to stay in it for weeks, months, years like you do with other modalities. We can be in and out, speed it up, because we're going directly into the nervous system, rewiring it to get it in the straight and narrow versus in all the knots and stuff that happen over the course of life. So it's incredibly fast compared to what else is out there right now.
True.
So awesome. Thank you guys again for joining me. I appreciate it. And thank you, audience, for joining us today as well. Again, we'll make sure these are in the show notes so that you guys can grab these classes in here. And I will see you soon. And until then, please always remember, chronic doesn't have to be permanent. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.